Hi guys, I'm here today with some thoughts about Gypsy Rose Blanchard. It's been a little while since I've covered her. I'm tired, and I know a lot of y'all are tired about hearing about her too. It's just the same old stuff at different days, so we're just going to go over several things that have happened lately that I have thoughts about, and then we're going to move on with other stuff. First, let's talk about this 60 Minutes Australia interview that they did with her. Number one, let's get the obvious thing out of the way. Shame on 60 Minutes Australia for allowing this little gremlin to come onto your show and spread her lies, spread her victim narrative, compare her story to DV survivors, compare her stories to people that are actually abused. It's gross. In this interview, Gypsy continues the, same narrative, like the two hosts of the show before the interview actually starts. They're going with the Dee Dee was a cruel mother, and she was abusive, and she was this, and she was that, and she was just the worst thing ever. Which we know that Dee Dee Blanchard was not a perfect person. We already know that. But to allow this same narrative to continue to be spread when we know that it is just not true, if you want to call somebody an abuser, then let's actually focus on people that have been proven to abuse their children. And after going on this rant about how traumatic and scary Gypsy's upbringing was, the one host had the nerve to say she understood why Gypsy Rose snapped and unalived her mother and came up with this ridiculous plan to use a disabled man and manipulate him into doing the deed for her so that she didn't have to, she would be able to gallivant around and say that she didn't do it, just like she's doing now.
Hello and welcome to the 60 Minutes podcast, Extra Minutes. I'm Amelia Adams and I'm joined today by our producer, Nicola Younger. Nikki, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
I should say.
Thank you.
And we're here to discuss a fascinating story and character, Gypsy Rose Blanchard. I want to ask you first up, do you think after the time that we spent with Gypsy Rose in New Orleans, she is a victim or a murderer?
Look, this is a hard one, and I think a lot of our audience will probably feel the same. I'm torn. We delve into our story, and we'll go into it a little bit later, but, she had a traumatic, controlling upbringing, and I can see why she snapped and ultimately, murdered her mum or was, helped murder her mum. So I understand. So I'm torn.
Yeah, she's a really interesting character. She was convicted of second-degree murder.
Yes.
For organising the brutal stabbing of her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard. And I think it's a question she says she gets asked a lot because she is a convicted felon in America. We caught up with her about a year after she left jail.
Yes.
Where she served 8.5 years of a 10-year service sentence, I should say, for second-degree murder. But she was also, as you say, very much a victim. She had an incredibly abusive childhood at the hands of her mother.
Yeah, she was controlled in all aspects of her life. She had no friends. She, was drugged. To the point where she thought, she was mimicking symptoms of being unwell. Her mum shaved her head, put her in a wheelchair, said she had leukemia. An interesting point, which she says in our interview, is it wasn't until she got arrested that she actually didn't know that she didn't even
She still thought she had cancer.
Yeah.
Even when she was handcuffed and taken to
until her lawyer was present, she didn't know that she didn't.
It's hard to imagine as a parent, but I think for anyone, a little child who's actually perfectly healthy and their parent, their mother, pretending that they are terminally ill. Her mother, Dee Dee, as you say, mimicked these illnesses, took her from hospital to hospital, confined her to a wheelchair that she didn't need, told everyone she couldn't walk. She could walk. She knew she could walk.
Now, 60 Minutes Australia on YouTube is hearing about this in the comments section, and they are deleting comments, which is, if you're going to be a joke of a media channel, then the least you could do is allow people to leave their comments up. So what I want y'all to do is leave the comments on my video. Let's talk about 60 Minutes Australia. Let's talk about what a joke this entire interview was. I want to insert in a couple of clips that I came across because it really proves how you can ask Gypsy one question, something as simple as, how far did you get in school? And she will literally have a different answer for different people in different interviews. Nothing is ever the same answer. And while I understand that, you know, life and real trauma can alter the way that you remember, you know, events happening in life. I realize that that can happen. But the reason that Gypsy does it is because she's a liar.
Growing up, like, I missed out on all those, like, milestone moments, like going to kindergarten, and I attended school for 1 year, kindergarten.
Okay. And how far did you go in school?
About the 2nd grade.
Remember going to school?
I've never been to school.
Never got to go to kindergarten, pre-K?
No, sir.
Question so many people want to know. Why didn't you get up and walk? Tell someone, run away, tell a doctor?
I don't think people understand the emotional hold that an abuser has on their victims. So, you know, asking me that is the same as putting me in a category of saying, well, domestic violence survivors, why didn't they just leave their abusive husbands?
Did you ever consider, in a public place, if you stood up out of your wheelchair and walked, Dee Dee's fraud would be completely exposed?
I honestly didn't think about that.
It never crossed your mind?
No.
You said he could have said no. You could have walked out that front door. You called a cab after you hacked her to death. You could have got to call that cab and left. You could have gone to a women's shelter. You could have gone to a police station.
She would have found me. She would have convinced them that I was lying. And she had paperwork to prove, like, I was mentally incompetent. Nobody would have believed me.
This is not somebody who is trying to work through trauma and giving a little bit of a different response. Like, she will give completely different answers, not that far apart from one another, because she can't keep up with her own lies. What I also want to say is everyone's talking about this clip from her new trashy show season with Lifetime, where she and Ken are in this restaurant, and Ken is really just treating her like a piece of shit. And while some people might say, oh, what a big bad guy Ken is, I'm actually sitting there thinking, I think that Ken is Gypsy's karma. I think him treating her like a piece of garbage in a restaurant and trying to embarrass her in front of a waiter, I think that's a little bit of karma. I don't feel bad. He's sitting there like ordering food that she doesn't like and then getting on her because she doesn't want to try the food, and then throwing her under the bus to the waiter saying, oh yeah, she's saying she liked it, but she didn't really try it. I wanted to shame her. Do y'all actually feel bad for Gypsy Rose being in that situation? Because I look back at how she treated Ryan, and y'all know I'm not a big Ryan fan, but look back at how she treated him and tell me that Ken is not karma. And I'm kind of here for it. While all of this is unfolding, Gypsy is still continuing to sit on social media and talk about how Dee Dee had Munchausen by proxy. Everything is back to Munchausen by proxy. She's a survivor. Her mom had MBP. That is not true. As a reminder, Dee Dee Blanchard was not diagnosed with Munchausen by proxy. That was simply something that was created by her defense team as a way to be able to have something to hold on to. It's the MBP. It's the MBP diagnosis. Dee Dee had MBP and was this big bad monster, and look at all the crazy things that she did, when in reality that is just not true. And we're going to go over all of the questionable things that Gypsy Rose went through and talk about that towards the end of the video.
So a microdeletion is when a small portion of a chromosome is affected. And in my case, it's region 1q21.1. I talk about how I believe that my mother was using this condition as a blueprint for some of the health concerns she claimed I had. Muscular dystrophy is also something very common with this genetic condition. However, muscular dystrophy does not get better with time. It gets worse, as you can read. All forms of muscular dystrophy grow worse over time, and muscles progressively degenerate and weaken. So therefore, there's no possibility that I had muscular dystrophy when I was undergoing all of these surgeries. I have a scar on my right thigh from being tested for muscular dystrophy, and it came back negative. If I didn't have it then, and I don't have it now, I didn't have it. So my right eye, I was born with a lazy eye. They also call it a lazy eye. So this is something that I do have. So I never had a stroke, never had dementia, never had a brain injury, never had head and neck cancer. And this goes back to the muscular dystrophy that we have already established that I never had and currently don't have. Therefore, making the feeding tube completely unnecessary. I was not placed in public school and didn't have the traditional schooling that most kids grow up having. My mom did educate me via homeschool from ages, I would say like 4 to about 9 years old. Growing up, I missed out on all those milestone moments, going to kindergarten, and I attended school for 1 year, kindergarten.
And how far did you go in school?
About the 2nd grade.
Remember going to school?
I've never been to school.
Never got to go to kindergarten, pre-K?
No, sir.
She's really sitting up on her social media acting as if she is some kind of medical educator when it comes to microdeletion. And, in my opinion, everything would have been just much better off for her and for everyone else if she would have just gotten out of prison, faded into the abyss, and just leave everyone alone. Just the fact that 60 Minutes Australia had the audacity to title their segment with her "How a Murderer Became a Celebrity" tells me exactly how people feel about her. Y'all are treating her like a celebrity, and that's why I will never completely shut up about Gypsy, because you have 60 Minutes Australia literally sitting here calling her a celebrity and a murderer in the same sentence. She still claims that she went through all of these unnecessary surgeries. She's claiming that Dee Dee used the microdeletion as a blueprint for her use and her Munchausen by proxy, which obviously is not true. She also doesn't want to play Russian roulette with having more kids and having them possibly have this microdeletion. So she talks about IVF. In my opinion, I don't think that IVF is going to be on the table for her and Ken, because I think that Ken is going to leave her long before another baby can even be planned. I think that we're all on the same page. They're not going to last. I think most of us know that. She also claims that a false narrative that's going around is that she had surgeries because of the microdeletion. Let's get into that, because I think that's one of the more important things when it comes to Gypsy. Just the blatant lies that she is spreading, not only about MBP, but also about this microdeletion and all of the surgeries that she had. She did not have all of these surgeries. She did not get anesthesia over 100 times like she tried to say she did on Kaylin Lowry's podcast. We know that that is just factually incorrect. Now, one of the surgeries that Gypsy had, it was one procedure for her lazy eye, and Gypsy has admitted that she actually needed this surgery in order to repair the lazy eye, and the lazy eye is part of the microdeletion. Now, the questionable procedures are her salivary gland removal, gastroreflux procedure, G-tube installation, and a muscle biopsy to rule out muscular dystrophy. That is 4. Now, I don't know in what world 4, even though I'm not saying that they were, a cakewalk. That is not all of these surgeries 100 times going under anesthesia. That is 4 procedures, 4. And as a reminder, Gypsy also drew this drawing of herself to disclose where her scars were. She drew this for Ryan Anderson, and I will put it right here. See, the problem with Gypsy is she always tells on herself. So you want to go around here acting as if you were, you know, a horrible victim, and you had, you know, 82 surgeries and you were under anesthesia over 100 times, but you have told on yourself by the things that you have already said. And that diagram shows moles and a few scars, all that tie out to the list that I just read. Other visits that she had, which were not surgeries, had to do with asthma, a sleep study, ear tubes, x-rays, etc. And the reason that a lot of these exploratory procedures were most likely done is because Dee Dee was presenting as a concerned mother. And when you have a concerned mother talking to a doctor about their child that has this microdeletion, yes, there are going to be things that are diagnosing, trying to get an answer to what the concern is. How is the patient presenting? What's going on here? There are going to be things that are strictly diagnostic when you're dealing with somebody that has a microdeletion. So for Gypsy to continue to try and say that, you know, Munchausen's by proxy this, I'm a survivor that, I'm trying to be an advocate. She's still talking about the advocate thing. Can you believe that? It's just simply not true. And this is why, you know, I get a little salty when it comes to people and even trashy TMZ, 60 Minutes, ABC, you know, Good Morning America, these media platforms that are saying, yeah, come on in. Come on in. It is so easy to prove that you're a liar, but why don't you come on in and do an interview with us? We will, you know, get lunch catered. We're going to have a glam team. We are just going to treat you like a celebrity. It really pisses me off. It truly does. And, you know, I consume this, I rant about it, and then I move on to other stuff. But what kind of society are we living in where Gypsy Rose Blanchard is being flown around the country and being set up on interviews as if she just discovered the cure for cancer? It's beyond what I can comprehend. But for now, we're going to talk about it. You know, might not be every day, but that's what's going on. And, yeah, I think Ken embarrassing her is hilarious. I don't feel bad for her. I don't feel bad for her. Why would I feel bad for her? You know, I did that case, or I talked about that case that's currently unfolding, Kimberly Sullivan. Kimberly Sullivan was using her stepson and kept him held in his room for 20 years. And, you know, you notice how he didn't manipulate an autistic person to unalive his stepmother. He took things into his own hands. And it sucks that he had to catch his house on fire, but he didn't unalive her, and he didn't groom somebody to unalive her for him. So anyone that's standing up for Gypsy Rose, seek help, get your head checked. That might sound a little too direct, but I really don't care. But that's it for today. So if you like the video, please leave a like and a comment. And if you'd like to see more from me in the future, please subscribe. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.